You posted a story. You watched the views come in. And then you saw his name. He watched it. He definitely watched it. And then, nothing. No text, no reply, no DM. Just his name sitting there in your viewers list, like a question you cannot stop asking yourself. What does that mean? Does he still think about you? Is he keeping tabs? Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Should you text first? Should you post another one? Should you pretend you did not notice? I know that spiral, and I know how much mental energy it takes up for something that happened in 3 seconds. So today, we are decoding this completely. Every real reason why someone watches your story without reaching out, how to tell them apart, and what, if anything, you should actually do about it. But before we begin, subscribe to my channel to ensure that you never miss out on any of my videos. With that being said, let's get right in. Before we get into the specific reasons, I want to say something that is worth holding on to for the whole video. The story view is one of the most overinterpreted signals in modern dating. Not because it never means anything, but because the gap between what it can mean and what it actually means in any given situation is enormous. And the problem is that the brain, particularly the brain of someone who has feelings about this particular person, will almost always fill that gap with the most emotionally significant interpretation available. Seeing his name in your viewers does not feel neutral. It feels loaded. It feels like communication, like a tiny, deniable reach. And that feeling is real. But whether it is accurate depends entirely on which of these 5 reasons is actually driving the behavior. And those reasons are not created equal. Reason 1. He is on autopilot. This is the most common reason of all, and the least satisfying one to hear. Most people who use social media regularly consume stories with minimal conscious engagement. They open the app, their thumb moves, stories play. They are not making deliberate decisions about whose stories to watch. They are in a passive consumption mode where the algorithm serves content and they receive it without much thought at all. This means it is entirely possible that he watched your story not because he was thinking about you, not because he was checking in on you, not because seeing your name prompted any particular feeling, but because his thumb was moving through stories and yours happened to be there. The watch registered, his mind was somewhere else. I know this is not the answer most people want, but it is the most likely one in the majority of cases, especially if the two of you are not in active contact. Familiarity on social media does not equal emotional engagement. Watching a story is an extremely low investment behavior. It requires nothing from the person doing it, and that low investment is part of why it is such an unreliable signal of anything meaningful.
Reason 2. He is curious but not ready to reach out. This version is different from autopilot. This is someone who is thinking about you, possibly more than he lets on, but who is not in a place where initiating contact feels comfortable or appropriate. Maybe things ended between you, and the ending was uncertain enough that he does not know whether reaching out would be welcome. Maybe he let things fade and feels awkward about being the one to restart them. Maybe he is interested, but his pride or his fear of rejection or his uncertainty about where things stand is keeping him from making the move. The story view, in this case, is a passive way of staying connected without the vulnerability of actual contact. He can check in on your life. He can see what you are doing, how you are presenting yourself, whether you seem to have moved on. He can feel some degree of proximity to you without putting himself at any risk of being rejected or ignored. The signals that suggest this might be what is happening, he watches consistently, not occasionally, regularly. Your name appears near the top of your viewers list more than once. He watches quickly after you post, which suggests either notifications or habitual checking. And there has been real history between you, not just a casual acquaintance dynamic. If this is the version you are dealing with, the watch is a low-level signal of continued interest, not a declaration, not an invitation, but something. And whether you act on that something depends entirely on what you want from this person. Reason 3. He is keeping his options open passively. This one is worth naming directly because it is more common than people like to acknowledge, and it can be easily romanticized into something it is not. Some people maintain a low-level presence in multiple people's peripheral vision without any real intention of pursuing any of them. They watch stories. They occasionally like photos. They respond with a fire emoji to something well curated. They stay visible enough to remain an option, not because they are actively interested, but because passive optionality costs them nothing and might pay off at some undefined future point when they are more bored, more lonely, or more interested. This behavior is not malicious, it is often not even fully conscious, but it is worth recognizing because it can very easily be misread as evidence of real interest. The pattern to watch for. He watches your stories but never initiates real contact. The interaction is always passive and always on his terms. If you have reached out before and the response was warm but led nowhere, that pattern is informative. Someone who is genuinely interested tends to take advantage of an open door. Someone who is passively maintaining options tends to leave it exactly where it is.
Reason 4. He is processing something. This reason applies most often in post-relationship contexts, but it can also apply in situations where something unresolved exists between two people who never fully defined what they were. When someone has genuine feelings about a person and has lost regular contact with them, stories offer a window, a way to check in on the life of someone who still occupies emotional space without requiring the courage or the clarity of actual communication. There is something in the story that he is looking for, sometimes reassurance that you are okay, sometimes evidence of whether you have moved on, sometimes simply the comfort of seeing you, even through a screen. The watching, in this case, is emotionally motivated. It is not indifference, but it is also not action. And the absence of action alongside the presence of watching tells you something about where this person is. They are feeling something, but they have not resolved it into anything clear enough to act on. If you know there were real feelings involved, if the history between you has genuine weight, and if his watching has a consistent and slightly deliberate quality to it, this is likely what is happening. He is somewhere in the middle of something he has not finished feeling. Reason 5. It was genuinely intentional, and it is an opener he does not know how to follow through on. This is the version that feels most promising and is also the most fragile. Some people use the story view as a calculated first move, a way of making their presence known, of putting themselves back on your radar without the directness of a text. The watch is the signal. The ball, as they see it, is now in your court. The problem with this move is that it is so ambiguous that it frequently fails to communicate what it was intended to. You see the name, you wonder. You do not reach out because you are not sure if it means anything. He watches again, you wonder again. Neither person moves, and the whole thing dissolves into a passive back and forth that leads nowhere because nobody was willing to take the actual risk of saying something real. If you believe this might be what is happening, if there is context that supports the idea that this person is using the view deliberately as an opener, then the most useful thing you can do is decide whether you want to respond. Not with a story designed to show him what he is missing, not with a calculated post, with a direct, low-pressure message, something simple, something that makes it easy for him to either engage genuinely or not at all. Hey, I saw you watched. Been a while. How are you? That is all it needs to be. It converts an ambiguous signal into an actual conversation, or it reveals that there was no intention behind the view and you can move on without wondering.
Now, I want to talk about the one thing you should not do after seeing his name in your viewers,
because it is also the thing most people are immediately tempted to do. Do not post another story specifically to get a reaction from him. I know the impulse. You want to see if he watches again. You want to post something curated and compelling that confirms you are doing well, that your life is full, that he made a mistake in not reaching out. And the temporary relief of seeing his name appear in the viewers again can feel like information, like evidence of something. But here is what is actually happening when you do this. You are organizing your content around managing his perception of you. You are allowing a 3-second passive view to direct your behavior. And every time you post for him rather than for yourself, you give a small piece of your autonomy to someone who has not done a single thing to earn it. The story view is only as powerful as you allow it to be. The person who genuinely does not need the view to feel okay, who posts what they want, when they want, for their own reasons, is the person whose stories carry a natural ease that is far more compelling than anything carefully curated for an audience of one. Let me bring this together with a framework you can actually use. When you see his name in your viewers and feel the spiral beginning, ask yourself 3 questions before you do anything. First, does this person have a history of taking action when they are interested, or a history of passive presence without follow-through? If the pattern is passive, a story view is consistent with that pattern. It is not a new signal. It is the same signal you have already received multiple times. Second, what do I actually want from this person? Not what I want their story view to mean. What do I want in reality? A conversation? A reconnection? Closure? Clarity? If you can name what you actually want, you can decide whether a story view is ever going to deliver it. And in most cases, it is not. What delivers what you want is direct communication, either yours or his. And if he is not offering it you, the question becomes whether you are willing to. Third, if I never saw this view, if his name was not there, would I be thinking about him right now? If the answer is yes, that tells you something about where you are emotionally, independent of anything he is or is not doing, and that is worth addressing for yourself, not through the lens of his story views. The story view is a data point, a small one. It lives in a category of behavior so low investment that it should carry very little weight in your assessment of where things stand. The things that tell you where things actually stand are the things that cost something. A text initiated from nothing, a genuine question about your life, a plan made and kept. Those are the signals worth orienting around. The rest is noise. That's Love Decoded. Drop a comment below. Have you been in this situation? Did you reach out or did you wait? What happened? I read every single comment, and this one is going to have some stories worth sharing. If this gave you some clarity, subscribe. We release a new video every week that decodes the moments in modern dating that most people are overthinking alone at midnight. Share this with someone who needs it, and I will see you in the next one.